I had a number of people as I walked around sort of apologetically say, I put no for something I feel is really important, and I feel very guilty about it. It's okay. This was an attempt to prioritize. Actually, also in a conversation with both Tim and with Paul Holmes, they both made the point, on the transparency one, it talked about whether PR practitioners should understand and be transparent about research, and both Tim and Paul made the point of, maybe it isn't the PR practitioner who needs to understand transparency or to be transparent in how something was done, but really us, the research community, that need to do that. So again, the whole point was to come up with a set of priorities by which a global education campaign would take place. Then the question becomes, okay, so how would you do it? And so in terms of how would you do it, we're going to hear from 5 different speakers. We have Christina Darnowski with Public Relations Society of America. And PRSA has been a fantastic partner with AMEC, particularly its North American chapter. Together, we're putting on a whole day of measurement at their conference, which draws, Christina, I think about 3,000 people in San Francisco in October. And really, you could argue there's an example of a client, an education program where maybe a step in doing so is to, bolt on a measurement symposium to PR practitioner conferences, which is exactly what we're doing there. And Christina, I know you're the head of research, but you were also, I believe, just promoted, is that right, to the director of membership at PRSA?
Yes, thank you, David. I'm now the director of membership at PRSA, and research will report to me. So I'm really happy that I'm going to keep that interest that I truly love, and also be working with AMEC moving forward.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And we all, I think, anybody in the room not know who Mike Daniels is?
I haven't got my glasses. It had to be.
Yeah, it had to be. So Mark, I think you've seen Mike in the hall. He's the chairman of AMEC, and he's done a lot of things in this industry and really runs the show. Sitting next to him is Jerry Davis from the Ireland Public Relations Association. And I guess we'll represent the views of really PRSA's equivalent here in the Emerald Isle, I believe you call it. Next to him is Tim Markline. He is from, I used to have it as WCG, but now it's
W2O Group.
W2O Group.
Same company.
Same company.
Parent company.
Which was previously Wisecom Group,
Yeah.
right? Why does that?
We'll do a family tree.
We'll do a family tree, okay. And Tim is very active in our North American chapter. He's also on the IPR Measurement Commission. He's a real leader when it comes to social media measurement. And I believe you're here representing about 20 different acronyms, CIPR, IPR, CRPA, I don't know, the American Red Cross. You're a whole lot of different groups, and thank you for being here. And next to him is Richard Houghton, who is representing the ECO, which, tell me what that stands for? International Communities Consultants Organization. Okay.
Isn't it lovely to be wanted?
It is. What's neat about doing this, and it relates to, I sort of hearken back to, everybody sort of looks at Barcelona a couple of years ago and says, that was really important because we came out with sort of defined principles, basic sort of foundational principles for what we do. I think one of the other things that was very exciting about both the drafting of those principles and then who was on the stage when they were talked about and voted on, and then what's sort of taking place since is that for a long time in our industry, we had a lot of organizations that sort of just banged their heads into each other. And we never really made much progress as a result. And I think one of the things we've seen sort of increasingly happen is that you be on a stage with 5, or with Tim now here, probably 20 different organizations represented, and really work toward a consensus around something that's meaningful to all of us in really a consensus or cooperation type format. And hopefully we'll continue that trend today, unless Tim and Richard get into it, and then we're not so lucky. So, Christina, will you start us off and then just have each of our 5 panelists talk about this?
Thank you, David. For those of you that don't know, PRSA is the largest community of public relations practitioners in the United States. We currently have over 22,000 professional members and about 10,000 student members. So we have quite a huge presence in the States. And our members are diverse in terms of where they work. So they work in corporate, they work in agencies, not-for-profits, educational arena, and we have a large segment of our community that are independent practitioners. And in terms of interests of our members, we are continually doing research to really understand what our members want from us and how what we're providing to them is being perceived in the community. We do a survey, a big survey every 3 years. The last 2 times we did this survey with Ketchum, and one question that we ask is about professional development. So we ask our members, what kinds of topics are they interested in professional development? And if you look at the chart there, you see that measurement and evaluation is right up there. On a 10-point scale, the top 3 boxes, in terms of interest, 71% of the members surveyed were interested in measurement and evaluation. Right up there was social media. And research is also something that they're terribly interested in, 54% for the top 3 box scores. So our members are thirsty for this kind of information. We recently made a decision, an organizational decision, to offer our webinars as part of the membership package. So our members are not paying any additional fees for webinars. And we offer these now a couple of times a month. We did a series of webinars on the Barcelona principles, really promoting them as how do you speak to your boss about what you do in terms of value. David did 2 of these. Don Bartholomew did 1. And we had over 1,000 registrants for those webinars. So I believe that we are doing a really good job of getting our members interested in measurement and evaluation and bringing the principles and the best practices to this huge community of practitioners that really work across different types of organization types. I also included here on this slide a little bit about what's happening with budgeting. And I know in the presentation we heard from our colleagues at Booz Allen, they spoke to how many practitioners feel that budgetary restraints are holding them back. Well, a study that was recently done by USC Annenberg was done of U.S. corporate public relations departments. They do this study about every 3 years. The last study that was done it was completed in March of this year, showed that PR budgets for research-related activities are going up. So when they did this study 3 years ago, it was 4%, and currently it's 9%. So we're really starting to see an increase in public relations budgets in the States. PRSA was involved in the whole value question even prior to Barcelona. I don't know how many of you have heard of something that we call the business case for public relations. There was a huge measurement component to this. We worked with previous individuals that chaired the IPR Measurement Commission to define sort of a precursor to the Barcelona principles. Pauline Draper worked with us on this, David Rockland, and some others. And what we've been doing to keep this alive is integrating a lot of the Amex stuff. David talked about how we as organizations are working together to share that same message so that everyone is really using the same standards. So rather than building a lot of this stuff, building on a lot of this stuff in our original business case, we're integrating these AMEC principles. David also spoke about what we're doing at our conference this year. We're really proud to be working with AMEC on a symposium that's going to be a pre-con to our conference. It's going to be held all day on Sunday, which is the first day of our conference. Our members tell us that they want practical tips and techniques. They want to hear case studies, and that's what we're going to be bringing to them. Some of the organizations that were represented here will be presenting on this panel. So we'll have Clorox, we'll have Philips, we'll have FedEx represented. We'll also have Starbucks, Norton, and then some of the PR firms will also be there. We're really excited about that. PRSA has been a strategic partner with AMEC for the last several years. We've just renewed our our partnership formally with them, and we're committed to really bringing this great work from AMAC to that huge community of practitioners in the States. So thank you very much.
You know, Christine, let me ask you a question, because one of the things we're trying to do here is begin to sort of create a list that everybody, once again, will get to vote on to different music, I promise you this time. Do you think this model of what we're doing in the fall is something that we might consider as one rolls out a global education campaign, which is basically to have less conferences, or maybe not less, but for our focus to be on adding a PR measurement component to a PR practitioner conference, like we're doing in the fall, versus sort of PR practitioners do their thing, measurement people kind of do their thing. Is that something you would think about, you know, putting on a list, so to speak?
Yeah, I think that would be great. And then the other thing, we're not just doing this symposium, we're having a track at our conference, which is going to deal with ROI. So, you know, it's going to also be very measurement based.
Great. Thank you. So what we're going to do, just so everybody understands, is our 5 panelists are going to speak. We're going to then have some comments from 3 esteemed individuals, Mr. Holmes, Mr. Sheldrake, and Mr. Mortel. And then really open it up to you to see what you think as to, so if you're looking to make a comment or add a question, there'll be a moment in time here when after we sort of go through this round to really get your input as well. Mike?
Thank you, Christina. I'm curious to know whether there's a causal correlation between having the strategic partnership with the PRSA and the improvement in measurement budgets that you talked about in your, in your data. Absolutely. Oops. You know me. Okay. This subtitle, I promised Paul Holmes, wherever he is in the audience, was written before you told me that you'd first talked about needing to get measurement on the agenda 25 years ago. The Let's Get It Done is a very important component of the way in which AMEC is kind of pursuing its agenda for driving professional standards around research into the broader PR community. We don't want to take 25 years to get, again, to where we are now. I think what we're beginning to see is a kind of accelerating curve where acceptance of measurement is becoming ever faster in more companies and more organizations. I think we're beginning to overcome some of the barriers that, that have traditionally meant that measurement has been a nice to have rather than a must have. But we still have a long way to go. And part of the work that AMEC is doing in terms of collaboration with professional organizations in the PR field is only the first step, I think. So let me just move on. The progress that we've made is pretty substantial. You know, some people might say, well, we've done such a lot in 3 years, is it, since Barcelona, I think? And we've probably made more progress in the last 3 years than we had on the previous 7 or 8 years of AMEC's life. But actually, is a case for saying that there may just be continuing confusion that we need to cut through. One of the statistics that that Chris presented that I was especially depressed actually in the survey was the 46%, I think, figure of executives that simply don't know about measurement somehow, that it's, you know, it just passes them by. So that's a challenge for AMEC. I think that's something that strategically we need to address. But we have started from a pretty low base, so the progress we have made is good, but it's just from a small base, and it's going to get harder from here on. We've made progress. We have Barcelona under our belt, and that's becoming rapidly much more recognized across not just the US and the Anglo-Saxon markets, but across increasingly into Europe and into Asia. We have the valid metrics framework, and there'll be some extensions to that we'll be talking about tomorrow with Richard's session tomorrow morning, which I urge you to come to help us formulate our next steps around social media. We are beginning to see the PR associations, and some of them are represented here, are taking measurement much more seriously. We at AMEC are having much more dialogue and greater collaboration with some of those organizations, which I think can only help in terms of sending a message about the importance of measurement and the benefits of measurement to a broader PR audience. We have finally killed AVEs, I think. It keeps popping up occasionally. We see it lifts from the dead like a zombie, and we still need to find the final silver bullet to get rid of it completely, but it's on its way out, which is great. As I said before, our challenges include things like social media measurement principles, but also what we're talking about today and later in the panel is professional competencies. Making our industry become a credible force demands that we begin to take note of professional standards, not just in terms of client delivery, but also in terms of research methodologies, and an acceptance of the need to be rigorous and transparent, as per the Barcelona principles, put those into effect, about the research that we do for our clients. So, as I said before, the problems that we face are, many potential users don't know about any of the stuff that we do still. We still have an enormous amount of outreach to do. This is an audience which thankfully encompasses something like 30 countries that we have here. But generally speaking, a lot of the progress that's being made in the areas that we've been talking about is still too UK and US focused. This is a serious problem. I want this organization to be taking those professional standards to a much broader audience, and we did the first step on that with our summit in Asia, in Hong Kong, earlier in the year. But we need to get into other parts of Europe, and we need to get into Southern Africa and North Africa, etc. And the Middle East is also another, as Mazen was pointing out on the workshop, is a very important area for us. We are still very much wedded to our black box solutions. I'm talking to measurement companies at this point. We like to think we have the secret sauce. We need to be much more open about the things that we can be open about that don't affect our competitive differentiation. That's a very important part of building customer confidence. We need to get beyond clients thinking of measurement as a nice to have. It needs to be embedded in every RFP that comes out for a pitch, for PR, or for measurement. Every program, as a couple of speakers have said, needs to have a measurement component to demonstrate the value, to demonstrate the business benefits, and to demonstrate the accountability of the PR function. And we're still siloed. I don't know we've had some discussion here about how media analysis can integrate with other components of the marketing functions within large organizations, but we don't talk the right language yet. And we still need to work on building our credibility as a research tool so that we at least get to consumer insights and strategy development departments, never mind going up, as Chris would like us to do, moving up the management chain towards the C-suite. So we have a vertical and a horizontal challenge. Okay. So I think there are 6 serious challenges that we need to look at. We've got to make sure that what we do is credible. It's based on solid research principles. It's evidence-based so that we can demonstrate the rigor of what we do. We need to raise the professional status of what we do, and part of that process from AMEC's perspective in terms of its commitment to this process is the online college, which I think I mentioned right at the beginning of the conference. I would urge you still to have a look at the syllabus because I think it's going to be a very important component in that regard. We've got to make measurement cool somehow. I don't know quite how, but I think it probably means contact lenses and small beards and hats that go the wrong way. I don't know. I've no idea. But we need to make measurement much more acceptable as, just something that is okay to do. You don't need to worry about it being numbers. It's cool. It's going to be about the business outcomes, and it's going to help you do your job better and those kinds of things. Part of that, I think, is that we need to listen more. As an organization, I've been banging on for however long I've been chairman, that we need to create more dialogue with our customers as a measurement company. We need to know more about what these guys here have as their day-to-day problems in measurement, but we also need to be talking much more to end users who are struggling with measurement, perhaps, or struggling to justify why they should do measurement in their company. That would help us broaden the potential user base. I hate the fact that we still work only in the communications industry. I really hate that. I think one of our big challenges and one of the KPIs for AMEC is I want us to be part of the Management Consultants Association. I want us to be part of the market research community. I think we need to get out of this corral that we sit in here where we think that the communications world is the only world that we can work in. And I think part of that actually will come from the work that Richard is helping guide around social media, because the conversations around social media are all about going up and across the organization. I think most organizations that are savvy about social media recognize its strategic importance at the C-suite level, but also in all sorts of other functions, including things like customer service and product development and all those kinds of areas. We all have a role as measurement companies to play in that debate. So we could choose. I don't do pictures very often, and I don't seem to have done them now. Oh, there we go. We could either be really, tread on eggshells and work very carefully and be very cautious. And I'm going to be, it's very unlike me. Or we could use an aspirational image and try and scale the heights. What do we stand to lose, apart from falling down the cliff? But I mean, hopefully we have safety harnesses, etc. But that is the challenge that we face. That's the choice. And to help us get there, I've just put up a couple of thoughts here about what we're trying to do, and this is practical, so I know I'm going over my time again. We need to make 100 years of communications theory accessible. We need to make it just part of everyday vocabulary. That means we've got to talk to academics, and we have to talk to professional research organizations as well. It should be embedded in tertiary communications education, and that's something that we haven't really tackled yet, but I'm hoping that the online college may lead to some additional accreditation around that. We need to build a much more professional profile. That will come through things like the online college. It will come through increasing amounts of compliance, which is going to be a tricky area for AMEC members to deal with. But compliance is one of the ways in which you ensure professional standards are communicated and made valuable to the end user audience, our customers. And as I said before, we need to collaborate with other organizations, professional organizations working in this area of business analytics to ensure that our data is much more integrated into the organization. We have to be professional in our standards, and that's a key component of the work that we're doing at AMEC. It has to be across the sector. It's got to be for individuals who are working as practitioners or within AMEC member companies. They have to be proficient at what they're doing, clearly. And very importantly, and the part of what we have here on the panel is we have to be helping intermediaries also help them become more professional. So we are going to look for global education programs that I think the kind of work that we're doing with the PRSA needs to be extended into Europe. We want to create more coalitions, and we're going to be doing much more communications and outreach. We are terrible at doing our own PR, I think, both AMEC and possibly some of our compatriots as well in the communications industry. I mean, measurement is sufficiently important to be it should be the focus of a planned communications outreach program. If we do that, I think, my last slide is a Euler, no, it's not a Euler, it's a Venn diagram. I think everybody benefits if we can do some of this. Clients will get increased value, more insight, accountable and transparent, less confusion. Measurement companies, sort of background that I come from, should be seen to be adding value. Therefore, the dollar invoicing that we can do should hopefully go up because we're delivering much more insight and value. And it should help us grow the total market. And for agencies, which is my handoff point, hopefully this makes the process of the relationship between the agency and their client much more open and transparent through better measurement. You will be better informed about what's going on in the marketplace to help you have better conversations with your clients. And again, it should promote less confusion. That is finally it. Sorry.
All right, Mike. So Mike, I think I heard a couple things as the drafters of our next steps are thinking this through. I heard focus beyond the UK and the US, which are where a lot of our focus has been. I heard maybe, and I'm perhaps over-interpreting, but that, to perhaps develop language that's included in RFPs for public relations that are clear, draft language. So somebody is putting together an RFP at a client organization. What should the measurement part include? So I'm hearing that as a potential step. Yeah, well, okay, so it should include it, and here's what it might look like. I'm hearing something around tertiary education as to what would a short course or a full course curriculum look like, whether it's delivered through the AMEC Online College or PRSA's webinars or at the University of Manchester, whatever it is, to come up. Is there a University of Manchester? I just made that up, I don't know. Okay, at Rutgers, that, there's some sort of, we sort of outline what those things are in some fashion. Is that, those are the things I heard that would sort of be planks, if you will. Okay, let's keep moving. Jerry?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jerry Davis. I'm Chief Executive of the Public Relations Institute of Ireland.
and of the Public Relations Consultants Association Ireland, which is a very interesting alliance. I sometimes have very interesting arguments with myself, which I invariably win. I've been 11 years in this job, and for 7 of those 11 years, I've been chairman of judging in our annual PR Excellence Awards. So having read literally hundreds of PR Excellence campaigns, or PR campaigns submitted by both in-house practitioners and by consultants, I feel I have a fairly good idea of how PR activity is measured, or in many cases not measured, in what we believe is a very sophisticated Irish PR market. And it's also given me a very good insight into the challenges faced by the PR profession, both in-house and consultancy, in developing simple and transparent, and of crucial importance, inexpensive metrics to demonstrate return on investment in PR. Now, this is where the heresy comes in. We all know that advertising value equivalent, AVEs, and I'm sure it's been mentioned many times over the last 2 days, have fallen into disrepute as valid metrics. And I'm not here today to advocate that they be raised from the dead. But guess what? From what I can see, media coverage is still the predominant factor in gauging the success of PR activity across many areas of practice. And in many cases, AVE is still being used to measure the value of much of this coverage, whether we like it or not. And guess what, as well, many clients, including blue chip clients and the public sector, accept this very crude metric and sign checks based on it. That's the reality of the situation. And I think this has been borne out by recent surveys carried out in the UK. Now, I only make this point because I believe that while the Barcelona principles dumped AVEs officially as a valid metric, in reality, apart from the very useful valid metrics framework, not an awful lot has been done so far to develop, and I repeat, simple, transparent, and inexpensive metrics to replace AVEs. And that's the challenge, I think, that's facing this summit. Now, if as agreed at Barcelona, the measurement focus should be on outcomes and not on outputs, let's remind ourselves what PR measurement in its purest form should look like. And this has been developed by our own IPR Commission on Measurement and Evaluation. You can read it yourself there. Quantifiable changes in awareness, knowledge, attitude, opinion, and behaviour levels that occur as a result of a public relations programme, in effect, the consequence or impact of a set of programme or communication activities or products. That's what measurement. That's what the outcome should be. So if we're in the business of measuring outcomes and not outputs, then using the above definition, it's quite obvious that comprehensive measurement of PR activity can only be done by market research before, during, and after the PR activity. In other words, it goes well beyond simple media evaluation. Now, the difficulty here, and those who are PR consultants, and certainly in this Irish market who are in the room will know this, is that this type of research is expensive. We're now in the depths of an appalling economic downturn. Clients won't pay for it, and PR firms whose fees have been absolutely hammered in this market, and I'm sure in some of your own markets over the last few years, certainly can't afford to pay for it. So therein lies the dilemma for both AMEC and for PR professionals. And can I also pose this question? If as a PR consultant you're essentially selling your time and your creative expertise, and you can't guarantee a particular outcome, and I'm sure Richard will know better than I, in fact the ICO Stockholm Charter precludes you from promising on specific outcomes, should the focus not shift at least to some degree back to measuring outputs? The lawyers and the accountants get away with it, and PR doesn't work on a no-fold, no-fee or a payment by results basis. So maybe it's just something that's worth considering again. So in terms of what needs to be done, firstly, we need to accept that there is no one-size-fits-all in terms of PR measurement. We also need to remind ourselves that PR is often an intangible product, and so buyers of PR services, and particularly procurement people, who are always wary of buying anything that they can't kick or twiddle the knobs on, they're very wary of buying it and they find it hard to get to grips with. So I believe that it's essential that whatever comes out of this very useful summit is rooted in the realities of PR practice and the difficulties faced by PR professionals, particularly consultants. PR professional bodies, including my own, are willing to engage with AMEC and its members in the measurement debate, but I would caution against boxing PR into a corner by creating an expectation among clients that can't be delivered in the short term. It can be if someone is willing to pay the money, but I just don't know who that's going to be. As regards the global education programme, frankly, I personally don't believe that we're ready for this just yet. And now maybe what I'm saying has been coloured by our experiences in PR here in this market over the last 4 or 5 years. But I'm just afraid that we might raise a level of expectation that, as I say, can't be delivered on. And of course, when PR people are surveyed and their clients are and asked if they're interested in measurement, yes, they'll say yes, but they're not willing to pay for it. And that has been our experience here. So we're certainly willing to engage, but I would think that we should possibly make haste slowly on this one.
Okay. Tim, I'll let you follow that one up, buddy.
Yeah, it's hard to follow the accent. When I'm going to start by disagreeing with Mike. We don't need to jump from nerd to cool. We should just go for geek chic right in the middle. Yeah, all of the professional basketball players in the U.S. are going for geek chic these days. So,
Geek chic.
Geek chic.
You know, given that we have people from 30 different countries, you want to explain geek chic?
I can't translate that one into 30
Over a
different
beer
languages.
at the dinner tonight?
Yeah,
okay.
It's Philip. It's Philip. It's geek chic.
Hey.
So when I'm going to start with what Christina said, which I think queued up that there's a really strong appetite in the practitioner community, but I think there are 3 things that we absolutely need to do differently if we want to close the gap between where we are and where the practitioners are. And I speak largely from my experience being on both sides of it. I lead the technology practice for W2O, which is really, I'm a frontline practitioner there, and I lead the analytics practice. So throughout my career, I've been on both sides of it. So the first thing that we need to do differently, and all of these need to be things that we bake into what we do every day, not go off to a class and do training or go off to a conference and learn about it, but what do we do every single day? So the first, on the training front, we need to customize the content. I think for too long in the industry, we as measurement professionals or research professionals have tried to teach the industry how to do research and measurement rather than teaching the industry how to consume and apply research and measurement. We're the research and measurement experts. We're trained analysts, and I think we need to remember that's our role. As part of that role, we can be consultants to the rest of the organization. We don't need to train everybody else how to do our job. We need more people who do our job. So we should absolutely do training of professionals to be able to do that, but I think we need to invest a lot more time in training PR professionals, PR practitioners, how to consume and apply the research and analytics that we have so they can go in and test and optimize programs, so they can develop the right outcomes, so they can write the right research or write the right goals for programs. And a lot of this gets into focusing on concept versus technique. We don't have to teach practitioners the technique, but they need to understand the concept. I think the other thing as part of that, we need to tailor the content in a way also in terms of how it's delivered. So PR practitioners are some of the busiest people on the planet. They don't have time to read white papers, but give them a 2-minute video or 5-minute video and we'll get a lot more traction and be able to span a broader audience that way. Second thing we need to do differently on a day-to-day basis is in the consulting arena, and this is to be brave. So I'll steal what Andre was talking about, and I'll paraphrase some of what Chris was talking about. We're probably the only discipline within most businesses that asks for permission to measure what we do. That's just silly. We should do what Chris was advocating, and that's just basically bake it in from the beginning. Don't ask for permission. Similarly, we talk in the PR industry a lot about seat at the table, but we kind of wait for the seat at the table. Well, let's go act differently and measure differently, and we'll get that seat at the table. Part of that is being brave and essentially just saying no to bad metrics and bad methods and bad ideas. Part of that is saying no and being brave and following up and saying, no, we don't do AVEs, and not that, oh yeah, we do PR value instead. No, we don't do AVEs, we don't do PR value, we do valid metrics, and we step up and do it. We have a unique opportunity in time here with standards where clients are confused. They need guidance. They need guidance from people like us. So we can go in through standards and also the confusion that it reigns on social media and open the door for a broader conversation about what metrics are really valuable and how we can deliver against that. The last thing that we need to do differently on a day-to-day basis is in packaging. And I would say the key lesson here is to make it consumable. Too much of what we produce and present as a research and measurement industry basically is presented in our language. It's not presented in the language of business. We need to translate what we're doing and get out of the deep details of the techniques and be able to figure out how to translate what we do into language that will play out in business. So 50-page reports or 50-slide decks are going to be a lot less effective than what we saw with the London Olympics, where they had a one-slide communication strategy. That was brilliant. So synthesis becomes important there. Data visualization becomes huge. Most of our charts look pretty crappy, to be honest, and we could do a lot more with data visualization. Storytelling, we're in the public relations industry. We can do a lot better job bringing storytelling around the data so it's not just a random set of statistics. And last but not least, as I said, speaking in the language of business, translating it into the CEO language, the CFO language, the CMO language, not the researcher's language. So that's it. Those are the things I think we need to do differently if we're going to close that gap.
Great. Thank you, Tim. So I'll just switch with it.
Being a good consultant, I need a prop, so I feel safer behind here, particularly with Mr. Westerby in the audience. I'm Richard Houghton. My role here is dual, I guess. I'm here as ECO board member. We represent 28 trade associations in 28 countries around the world. That's about 1,500 consultancies, but also the PRCA, which is a UK association. I'm going to give you a pragmatic view, I hope, for making measurement matter. Just for the record, I represent consultants. We think this initiative is a great one. We really hope it succeeds because we think we'll make our members more profitable. Let's be blunt about it. So we're taking this seriously. To be blunt, we have a little bit of an uphill challenge to persuade consultancies to evaluate. Not because, as Mark suggested this morning, that we're all a bit stupid and can't understand these complicated metrics you're using, but I think commercial expertise and maybe a little bit of insecurity gets in the way of us doing a great job on evaluation. So we're not the enemy, but let's be honest, we're not entirely engaged with your agenda. We did some work, quick research of ECO members June last year, so it's the latest I've got, but 48% believe AVE is sometimes valid, depending on the nature of the campaign. I certainly don't want these rearing their ugly heads again, but they are there. And 50% of those in the ECO, remember this is 28 countries around the world, are using AVEs to report to clients. I think that's a straight commercial demand. The PRCA, widely varying use of media across those, measurement across those markets. The PRCA gave me a piece of research yesterday, just before I got on the plane, so this is hot off the presses. Sadly, frustratingly, and majorly depressing for somebody who spent 15 years in the UK working on getting evaluation used, 33% still believe it's a useful tool. I have their names. I will be going around and beating the soles of their feet. But the good news is 61% of them expect evaluation to grow in terms of spend in the next 5 years. So whether they're going to spend more on AVEs or more on useful tools, I'm not sure, but let's hope it's the right way round. I have stuck to Barry's titles. I know when I'm told what to do, so I'm following exactly what he asked. What are the campaign aims? I think acceptance, maybe an endorsement if we can, of the benefits of measurement across both sides of the public relations industry, both in-house and consultancy, would be value. And I would also think stretch target, let's start the process of educating non-public relations people in the benefits of evaluating PR. Because that's going to take longer, hopefully. Or maybe it won't, but it should, in theory, take longer than getting consultants to think about it. You need an approach to doing this. We're great believers in using what you've already got. The Barcelona principles and the valid metrics are good tools and starting points we'd really like to see involved in this education program. We think from an entry point, though, social media is a hot topic. And it may sound a bit back to front, but why not start by talking about how you can measure social media? And then you can backfill into the more traditional campaigns. You might as well get people where they're interested. You've heard it already from lots of people. Consistency in terminology, the tools you offer, the benefits messages and the channels. You need some sector heroes. You need to show who's doing evaluation well, where, in a language that everybody can understand. So as Tim said, that's a one-page or it's a video, but it's certainly not a 50-slide deck. Be honest about the challenges. Sometimes it can be difficult to get PR consultants to understand how to evaluate. Be honest with them and just say, some of this is going to be strange to you, so let me take you through it. But The education program needs to accept that. And lastly, I'd like to see some very clear measurement criteria for your education campaign. How on earth will we know if it's working? If that's the average increase in income across AMEX members, that's fine by me, but I think we should have some sort of evaluation campaign. We were asked as well what ECO and the PRCA, or what ECO would do over the next 12 months to support your campaign. I can start by saying that the PRCA is working with AMEC in the UK to put a toolkit together around the Barcelona principles. It's only taken us 14 months. We're really quick. Don't worry, we'll get there. But the idea being is that we're going to build this, provide it to our members. We've got both in-house and consultancy members now. Is it 300 plus now, Steve? So a good range across the UK. And the idea being is that they'll start having the tools to do it. In terms of ECO's role, and we have 28 countries with lots of different levels of sophistication, we are going to run an education campaign around why measurement matters for our members. Tools in there, guidance paper, the endorsement of your campaign, explaining the Barcelona principles, getting those metrics up there and using those. Put that onto our website plus our Insight blog, so start doing that practically for you. We're going to be running, hopefully, a free or subsidised series of training for all our members online through the PRCA's online training platform. The idea being is we'll work with AMEC to build some modules around that and develop the existing ones to make sure that our members can get access to affordable training on how to measure and evaluate. We have 28 members of our board. To put it politely, some of us could do a little bit of education around measurement, so we'll be doing that as well. We provide a speaker bureau, so we have speakers within ECO who go and speak at other events. We're going to make sure that they've got the presentations and the materials to talk about this and why evaluation matters. And it will be a stream in our 2013 summit to make sure that our members have the tools as well. Last slide from me. How do you gain broader support for this campaign? I think you need to focus on what PRs, non-PRs want from measurement. We've heard a lot about the C-suite today and their language. That's all endorse all of that. We need to do that. Talk the same language as the finance guys. Absolutely. There's no good suggesting that non-financial language is going to cut it. They're not going to get it. They're not going to accept it. Lastly, demonstrate value through case studies that non-PR people can understand. If we could get a collection of CFOs who loved PR evaluation and understood why it was worth doing, we'd be well on the way. And lastly, I'd just say you need to make it as easy as possible for the consultancies to get started. Nick said to me last night, it's really easy and shouldn't cost you a fortune, so I look forward to seeing that. But anyway, thank you very much.